Head over to miniaturemarket.com where they have thousands of board games at discounted prices like Royal Visit. Royal Visit is a 2-player tactical card game with an abstract element. Each player has their own chateau that they're trying to have the king visit. If so, they win, but you must keep the king between the 2 guards at all times. Or each round you have a character in your chateau, the crown will move closer to you, and if it gets towards one of those spots, you'll win. You'll be playing a card or cards of the same type and using those to move those characters. Now you can also move the jester, but if you position him correctly, you can use his cards as wilds to be able to move other characters. Or you might want to use the wizard's power to summon a character right to them. So you'll be playing cards in a tactical way, drawing back up and trying to find the right time to play the right cards, as well as some special cards like moving the jester to the middle, moving the entire court one space, which are the guards and the king, or even moving the guards right next to the king. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. The playmat and wooden components are awesome in this game. It's basically a card game with an abstract tug-of-war that works really well. You're using the wizard to summon things right to him. You're using the jester cards as wilds if it's between you and the king. You're trying to manipulate the timing of the end of the game possibly. Multiple immediate victory conditions, or you go to an end game sort of final thing, and I love the way those work together. This game just has great tacticalness. It's a great tug of war. It's quick, it's easy. On the negative side of things, the first play will feel a little fiddly because a couple of little rules there and subtleties as to how you use the powers, and sometimes you just might not get the right card that you need at the right time. But for a 2-player quick 20-minute card game, this is fantastic. It got a Saxophone Serenade, my highest honor, and it stayed in my gaming library. Another great game from Reiner Knizia. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we are trying to encourage the king to come visit at our chateau, because if that happens, we'll win. Today we're taking a look at a Reiner Knizia 2-player game that originally came out in 2006 but is being reprinted by Iello called Royal Visit. Now Reiner Knizia is one of my favorite designers. Does he have another hit on his hands? I never played the original. I'm glad this one is making a bigger splash, be able to sort of, have a bigger footprint and have more distribution. And so I'm going to be giving you an overview of this, and I'll see you on the other side for my final thoughts. Now this new version of Royal Visit comes with these nice, huge, chunky wooden figures here that just look really nice. Now typically they would be standing up like this where everyone can see them sort of at the table. But just so you can get a better view of the art and see the figures better as I explain the game, I'm going to lay them flat like this. Now there's 2 ways to win the game immediately. One is if your king is on your side of the board in one of your 2 spots, which is known as your chateau. However, you always must keep the king in between the 2 guards, so he could never be like this, for example. And that's a little bit of a trick of how you manipulate the different pieces. Now, the other way to win is to get this crown token in one of these 2 crown spots in your chateau. At the end of your turn, for each character in any of your 2 chateau spaces, it goes 1 for each of those. And also, if the 2 guards and the king are on your side of the board, known as your duchy, it'll also move an additional 1, but all you need is one of these 2 and you'll win. Now, how this is facilitated is by basically a card game. Each player starts with 8 cards, and you can be playing a card or multiple cards on your turn and manipulating these different pieces. Now, you can only move one type of character on your turn and play cards for one type of character. However, the 2 guards, even though they're 2 separate pieces, are essentially the same type. So I could play this card and move a guard 1 towards me. Let's say we're sitting on this side. I could just go like this. Or I could have gone something like this. Again, they're normally standing up. But you can play multiple cards if you're moving the same piece. And in this case, we moved 1, we did that, and we have a 1+1, which means I could go like this and this. Or I could have done 1 and 1. However, you always have to keep the guard on both sides of the king, so I couldn't have moved this one like that. But you could play a bunch of these. If I had a bunch of guard cards, I could try to move these into the chateau and be able to possibly move this on a turn. So it's sort of a tug of war there. So let's say it's this player's turn. They could play the jester card, and they could just move the jester 3 spots towards them. However, the jester has a special ability. If the jester is between you and the king, when you play your jester card or cards, It's essentially a wild, and you can move any one type of character. So for example, I have 6, 7, 8. I could be like, you know what, this is in between here. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And guess what? Because I have a character there, at the end of my turn, this is going to move over. Remember, if I get here or here, I would win immediately. But let's say on the next turn, this player pulled the guard here, moving this back like this. Now the wizard has a special ability. It can, instead of playing cards, you can summon any character, except the jester, to its spot. But remember, the king always has to be in between the guards. So this player could summon this guard like this, right? And then maybe next turn, it could move with some wizard cards. And then the turn after that could bring the king to here, being very close to winning the game. Or you could have moved the wizard on your turn back to here. On your next turn, summon the guard here. On the next turn, move the wizard here with a 1. And then the next turn, summon the guard. And at that point, you would win. So there's some sneaky ways you can use the wizard. There's also a way if you play 2 of these cards, it actually puts the guard and the king and the other guard all move in one direction, one spot. And there's also a card that brings the guards right next to the king, no matter where any of them were. So on your turn, you're playing as many cards as you want, of course making sure they're the same cards, and then drawing back up to 8. Now once the deck is gone, you flip this over, you shuffle the discard pile, you create an entire new deck, and if nobody has won in the ways that I've showed you earlier, by the time this next deck gets empty, and this is on the small crown side, whatever side of the board this king is on, that player would win. All right, first let's talk about the components. The playmat is awesome. It's like, it's not that neoprene stuff. It's like a nice, it's hard, almost like, it's just like a soft mat that has a nice feel to it. I love the mat in this game. And the wooden components are great. They're big, they're chunky, they're fun to pick up and move. They feel good in your hands, they're solid. Great components here. Great insert too, which I did not show in the overview, but the insert is very well done in this game, and the cards are good quality too. Now this is basically a card game with an abstract tug of war. I love games that have tug of wars. I like card games. So this really was one that I was really interested in, and it did both of these things very, very well. The powers make this game really interesting, like using the wizard to summon anything right to it. Now, of course, you can't summon the jester to it, but you can summon the other things. So, but you're trying to like sneak your wizard around closer to your chateau in it, and then summon a guard, maybe move it a little bit, summon the king and win. So there's like that, you know, the other player will know what you're up to, but it's one of the strategies of the game to try to pull and push with. Now, when you're using the jester cards, great. If the jester's on your side, between you and the king, I mean, if it's just between you and the king, regardless of where it is, you're able to use them as wilds, and you're able to play multiple cards and move a specific character. And I like that aspect. Those two little wrinkles really add so much. They seem like pretty subtle things when you're explaining the rules, but it's really what makes the game what it is. I love that you're trying to also manipulate the timing of the end of the game. If you didn't win automatically, you know, or you know, immediately, I mean, by getting the king to your chateau or getting that crown to your chateau, the timing at the end of the game is like, oh, what side is the king on? If it's on their side, I'm gonna play less cards to let the draw deck go down more slowly, because I know the game is gonna end when that draw deck gets emptied the second time. And it has that sort of, again, Reiner Knizia is one of my favorite designers, Lost Cities is one of my favorite two-player games. That game also has a way that you can control the end game timing. I love it when games do this, and this one has that too. And I typically like games where you can have immediate win conditions and then like an end game sort of scoring condition. And this has that. And I really like that aspect, and the manipulating the timing of that is fantastic. And the multiple ways to win immediately is really cool too. Love that in the game. On the negative side of things, the rulebook did a great job of teaching the game. It's well laid out, graphic design is great, but it didn't do a great job of sort of teaching you why you would want to do some of these things. So your first playthrough, you might stumble through, as simple as the game is, and you might really struggle. It might feel a little fiddly as to, wait a minute, this guy does this and this, but it can't be this, and you can't summon this guy, and this has to be on your side, but you can only do one character, but they can both be the thing. So like, as simple as this game is, there are a little fiddly rules here that will probably hinder your first play of this. You'll be looking at the rule book, you'll be trying to figure it out, but once it clicks after that first play and you go, okay, I'm trying to bring the wizard and summon things. Okay, I want the jester on my side between me, or just between me and the king, and then I can start playing wilds, but it's just one. Once those click and you don't have to like think about them, the game really opens up, and every play of this gets better and better and better and better and better, and it's just a great two-player game. It's an impulse buy too. I mean, it's a low price point, great components. On the negative side of things also as well, sometimes it is a card game. Sometimes you'll be in a tight spot and you'll be like, I really just can't get the cards I need at the right time, and that will you'll probably end up losing. But this game's hand management too. You gotta see what they're doing, think about what they might be doing next, keep some cards back that might combat against what they're doing. So sure, I put this as a negative, but it's actually a positive as well. Overall, I really love this game. It's really enjoyable. It feels Knizia-ish. If you get past that first sort of awkward, fiddly little first play and you get everything locked in, it's a fantastic game. And for that reason, it is getting a Saxophone Serenade, which means that's my highest honor. It is staying in my gaming library to share with others. And so let's do its justice. Let's hit it.